Do you have trouble getting close to people? Do you tend to view people as bad or wrong when you leave them or they leave you? Do you have fears of other people controlling you? Do you rebel against or move away from people who try to get too close to you? Do you get anxious in close, intimate relationships? Feel constantly afraid you will make a mistake? Do you try to be perfect and expect others to be perfect? Do you refrain from asking for help even when you need it? Do you have a strong need to be right? Do you get afraid of being consumed by the needs of others? Do you fear that others will reject you if you show your weaknesses or fears? Do you get bored easily and need to seek new thrills? Do you make high demands on yourself or others? Tend to see people as all good or all bad, depending on how they relate to you? Do you keep very busy with hobbies, recreation, or other projects? Find it difficult to relax and do nothing? Have fits of anger when you don't get your way? Take outrageous risks in sports or business dealings that you secretly hope will make you rich and famous? Do you believe you are entitled to have others treat you in special ways? People with counter-dependent behaviors appear strong, self-confident, and successful on the outside. On the inside, they are insecure, fearful, and needy. They may function well in the world of business, but often they are failures in the world of relationships. Frequently, they have poor relationship skills, are afraid to get close to others, and avoid intimate situations as much as possible. In short, they keep very busy trying to show other people that they are okay and do not need anything from anyone. Counter-dependent behaviors in adults often control and restrict the amount of love, intimacy, and closeness they can give and receive in their lives. These behaviors can create feelings of loneliness, alienation, and a sense of quiet desperation. People who display counter-dependent behaviors probably have unmet needs for closeness and intimacy, but these needs are hidden, not only from others, but also from themselves, because counter-dependent people make judgments about needy people. Previously, when they revealed their weaknesses and vulnerability, someone made fun of them or ignored them because of it. There are three basic developmental reasons why adults behave in counter-dependent ways. First, they did not bond sufficiently with their parents during the first year of life. Second, their parents were not able to help them become emotionally separate during the second and third years of their lives. And third, they suffered developmental traumas as the result of abuse and neglect. Trauma creates patterns or loops of behavior, and that keep you stuck in codependent and counter-dependent behavior. While codependent behaviors are related to traumas involving abandonment and neglect, counter-dependent behaviors are associated with traumas involving abuse. If you experienced both kinds of traumas, you will likely alternate between codependent and counter-dependent behaviors as an adult. Adults who, as small children, were abused by people they trusted often fear they will experience similar abuse or abandonment when they try to get close to other adults. They learn to construct physical and psychological walls to protect themselves from encountering the feelings related to their unhealed childhood traumas. These people have difficulty being close to and intimate with others. They often unconsciously reenact their abuse with their own or other children. Physical abuse includes slapping, punching, hitting with a stick, and spanking and hitting on bare skin in ways that leave marks or bruises. People whose social and emotional needs aren't met in the first 3 years of their lives carry them around. These needs then emerge in adult relationships and interfere with intimacy. This is the main cause of counter-dependent behaviors in adults. When individuals simply do not get their developmental needs met in childhood, they find themselves just playing grown up. They grew up believing that hard work and taking care of others were the best ways to meet their own emotional need for intimacy. They also have low self-esteem and are often loners. They don't make friends easily and don't know how to receive love or how to be intimate. Experiences of physical or emotional abandonment between 10 and 25 months are particularly damaging to a child, as they can arrest development and leave children with many codependent and counter-dependent behaviors. A child stuck at this stage will grow up seeing the world as split into good and bad, and will see problems as always having either or solutions. Solutions involving both and will not be available as options in problem solving. Behaviorally, 2-year-olds are opposed to anything adults suggest. The underlying theme of a 2-year-old's thinking appears to be, "No, I don't need you. I can do it all myself." Power struggles, rebelliousness, egocentrism, outbursts of anger, and the need to be right are typical of the 2-year-old struggling to become an emotionally separate human being. Their parents are helping them through the process of ego reduction, and they are learning to limit their natural narcissistic beliefs in their omnipotence, and to limit their grandiosity, sense of entitlement, and euphoria. 2-year-olds are struggling to separate from their primary caregivers, especially the mother, and to become separate, individuated people. If you went exploring during the counter-dependent stage of development and got scared or hurt, you needed to be comforted and nurtured. If you were made fun of or rebuffed in some way, this developmental trauma caused you to build protective defenses against being hurt again. Perhaps you wanted to prove to your parents that you were strong and didn't need anyone. Repeated experiences like this convince children that they should avoid telling others when they feel scared, insecure, or confused. The message they internalize is, "Take care of yourself and don't trust anyone." Counter-dependency behaviors involve creating defenses that make sure no one knows your real feelings and uses them against you. The successful resolution of the conflicting needs for oneness and separateness occurs between the ages of 2 and 3. If you did not have parents able to help you complete this stage successfully, you had to develop a false self to make you look strong and independent. You hoped this false self was more to their liking than your true self, and that it would help you survive in your family. As an adult, you may have retained aspects of your false self that now interfere with intimacy in your adult relationships. Those who don't fully experience ego reduction and healthy separation become stuck at this stage of development. They demand more than their share of resources and divide the world into good and bad, and all or nothing. They use manipulation, pride, justification, self-centeredness, and addiction to mood-elevating drugs to help maintain control. When confronted with limits to and consequences for their bratty behavior, they have tantrums and fits of rage and want to destroy themselves and those around them, rather than grow up. If you had repeated experiences of abuse, neglect, or repeated developmental traumas, you likely decided that oneness and closeness was unsafe and too scary. Out of a need to protect yourself, you might have prematurely chosen to separate emotionally from your mother or father and developed more counter-dependent behaviors. For example, you learned to wall off your feelings of vulnerability and fear and your need for closeness by creating defensive behaviors that pushed people away and showed people how much you didn't need them. You began creating a false self that helped you look capable and act strong. You also developed the illusion of an inflated importance, so that you would never have to let anyone see your vulnerability and wounds. You may have a lot of repressed rage and sadness about not being loved for who you really are, and at the same time have defenses that help you avoid feeling these feelings. In reaction to the loss of the true self, those with counter-dependency issues often inflate the false self in an attempt to look like the real thing. Inside, they feel fragmented and afraid to risk the emotional closeness of an intimate relationship that could bring up old feelings. They literally have no time and energy to focus on another person. They fear abandonment or rejection. People with codependent behaviors generally develop a deflated false self, one that looks weak and helpless, while people with counter-dependent behaviors generally have an inflated false self. Those with codependent behaviors are more prone to depression, while those with counter-dependent behaviors are more likely inclined to grandiosity, to avoid feeling depressed. Codependents have an intense need for touch and physical closeness, and they may attract partners with counter-dependent issues. In contrast, counter-dependents want intimacy, but stay alert for signs of engulfment, and quickly erect protective boundaries. People with codependent and counter-dependent issues approach conflict differently. Those with codependent patterns usually approach it more passively. They enter a conflict expecting to end up in the victim role. The best they can hope for is to make people feel sorry for them, so they can get their needs met. People with counter-dependent patterns approach a conflict more aggressively and usually end up in the persecutor role. By staying in this role, they can hide their needs for closeness and intimacy, and feel safe by keeping people away, or as responsible for the conflict, because this might indicate they have faults. This would crack their narcissistic defenses and make them more vulnerable to criticism and shame. Many people with counter-dependency patterns are addicted to perfection, or at least to looking perfect. This may have been the only way they could get any recognition or approval from perfectionistic parents. Have you ever felt the inability to identify or express important feelings? Attempted to always look good and always be right? Felt a lack of trust in other people's motives? Been reluctant to ask for help from others when needed? Preferred to work alone? Been in constant fear of making a mistake? Have you ever had low tolerance for frustration, marked by temper tantrums or fits of anger when frustrated? Have you ever been unable to relax and had a constant need to be engaged in work or activity? Have you ever felt afraid of being smothered or controlled by the needs of others? Had little awareness of the needs or feelings of others? Tended to sexualize all nurturing touch? Been addicted to work, sex, activity, or exercise? Adults with counter-dependent patterns often form superficial relationships that they cannot sustain. They have a sense that they are not whole without the help of someone else. However, they try to hide this fact from others, so they can appear as if they really don't need other people. In order to maintain this deception, they often sink an enormous amount of energy into fooling themselves and others regarding the depth and range of their needs. They often do this through an almost compulsive adherence to activities that others will value and reward, such as work, hobbies, recreation, exercise, or community activities, all of which serve to keep them busy and make them look good. In this way, they are actually hiding from themselves, hoping they won't have to feel their deep feelings of being rejected, abandoned, abused, or smothered by the people they were close to while growing up. Here are some common beliefs found in people struggling with counter-dependency issues. If I pay much attention to the other person, I will lose myself. If I listen to what others say, I will get talked out of my own beliefs and views. If I get close to someone, he or she will see how unlovable I am and reject me. If I listen to other people's feelings, this may stir up my own. If people get to know me, they will see how weak I am and lose respect for me. If I open up to someone, they will abandon me and I may die. If I cry, I will never be able to stop. If I get angry, I might kill someone. If I express my pain, it will be unending, and I might go crazy or die. If I cannot handle my pain of rejection, I don't know what will happen to me. If I'm not in control, people will take advantage of me and control me. People with counter-dependent behaviors learn to be superficially pleasant, hard-working, highly successful men and women. Inside, however, they are afraid of intimate situations, feel insecure when they aren't in control, and are unable to form or sustain close relationships. Rather than risk being re-wounded through intimacy, they seek the bliss of bonding through addictions to activities or substances. They get their high through work, drugs, alcohol, sex, exercise, religion, meditation, travel, or intense emotional states such as rage. They believe that through these dysfunctional adaptive behaviors, they can break free of their core childhood traumas. People with counter-dependency issues are often hyper-vigilant, watching everyone and every situation to determine if they are going to be hurt or ridiculed. This takes an inordinate amount of energy, and little energy remains for getting to know people, beyond seeing them as potential threats to one's well-being. Because they know they are needy and recognize that something is wrong with this, they try to hide their neediness from others and use indirect means to meet their needs. Close relationships activate all our old traumas, our memories of engulfment, invasion, betrayal, abuse, and manipulation. All the feelings related to our unmet needs begin to surface when we become close and intimate in a relationship. People with counter-dependent behaviors often struggle with creating appropriate boundaries. Their need for protection while growing up was so strong that they had to create walls instead. However, they often protect themselves by crossing the boundaries of others. They learn to adopt an "I'll get them before they get me" attitude. They are always watching for the next incident of invasion or abuse. In their hypervigilant state, they often misidentify what they believe are the first signs of a possible attack or invasion, and make a counter-move to short-circuit their opponent. This protective reaction makes them frequent violators of other people's boundaries, and makes them appear aggressive. If aggression is a problem for you, you may be carrying anger from your past that needs to be released.